So before I turn the mic over to Rick, you have this in your booklet there, or the information. And so I wanted to point out, kind of just really quickly, what this means. So the first single-family dwelling underneath, that's for people that you're already living somewhere, right? And you're not sure you ever want to move. So I just, I don't know if I put it in your booklet, but in November, we're going to have a seminar on aging in place. And so that, to be able to, if you're going to stay, you just know you want to stay there forever, let's make sure you're safe. Also, next month is on reverse mortgages, and there are reverse mortgages that can help you buy something if you're choosing to actually downsize or right size. And so that's what the number 2, 55, maintenance free. So that's if you're choosing to move into a development that is 55 plus, or into a home that's more comfortable for you. So the last 4 on there are senior community living options. And that's who the rest of the panel is here to help you understand. So the CCRC is, we have Sue from La Costa Glen that will be coming up. And she is, will explain that it's a very unique situation. It means continuing care retirement communities, thank you, I always get that confused. And then Sean and Jonathan will be hitting on the other type of senior living communities, and there's ones that are independent living, where they have usually full kitchens, and they'll tell you more about it. Then there's assisted living and long-term care and memory care. So I'm not going to go into a great deal, but I want you to know you have that there, and that you can take notes on that or in there. So I've talked long enough. I'm turning this over to Rick, and here's the clicker.
Great. The clicker. Excellent. Hey, welcome you all to 55 plus living options you didn't know you had. And Bill, that's 55, not 56, 57, 58, but it's just for people 55 and older. I get those questions. Hey, I guess most of you guys already know this stuff, and we do have a pretty strong panel of folks that are going to go through this with you, and so you'll have a better understanding of what's out there and what to ask for. But so some of these things you know, some of you don't, but I don't know that much about our audience either, so I'd like to ask a couple of quick questions, if that's okay. And I'd like to ask, how many of you have downsized from a larger home to a smaller home? Anyone? Good. All right. Fantastic. And how many people have helped someone downsize? Same kind. All right. Cool. And how many people have been to a senior center for a tour or have visited a friend there? Fantastic. Excellent. Great. And how many of you would say, hell would have to freeze over before I'd move into one of those places? That's fair. That's fair. I had a friend of mine, he told me that the only way he'd be leaving his home is toes up. Now, according to the National Center for Health Statistics, almost 30% of people die at home, and 40% die in a hospital, and then there's the rest of them. And you know what? That story I just told you is not true. It wasn't a male friend of mine. She was female, and she didn't say toes up. But she talked about another part of her anatomy that begins with a T. That's the truth. Let's see. So the way this is going to work real quick is I'm going to bring my experts up here in a minute, and I'm going to ask them some questions pretty much based on a lot of questions that I get from people. And that's going to go on until about 11. And then I'm going to turn the whole thing over to you guys, and then you can start asking them questions. And we're going to try to finish around 11:30. So I was going through the internet, and I was looking for jokes to say up there, right? And I didn't find anything really good, but one of them that really tore me up was the one that said, they say, be nice to your kids because those are the ones that are going to pick your nursing home, right? And, I thought it was kind of cute, but then I started thinking, I really don't like that. It's not the way it should go. because let me tell you something, it's a fact. If your kids have more experience downsizing than you, maybe, just maybe you want to get them involved. But I'm telling you right now, start working on your plan, what you want, not what somebody thinks that you want, because that's what you're going to get. I'd like you to start putting together a plan now. Write just a few words down on a sheet of paper, and hopefully you'll move along to looking at a community that works for you or how you want that thing to lay out. And then what you do is put it in a nice package, maybe a Christmas gift for your kids. Give them that Christmas gift so they don't have to worry about you when you're getting older. And I think that's a heck of a gift. So I'd like to have my guests come up here and join us, if you guys would. Thank you guys for showing up. Matter of fact, what they're going to do is, in the next hour, probably provide you with information it'd take you weeks to get. So hopefully you'll learn some. What I'd like to do is have you introduce yourself, who you are, what role you played in the organization that you belong to, and why you're here to talk today about senior living options. So going from Jonathan's first, I'll let you start.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jonathan Schwartz, and 20 years ago, I used to be a stand-up comedian. And now my passion and expertise is senior living. I founded a company here in San Diego about 5 years ago called Partner in Aging. And our passion is helping connect older adults and their families to any resources related to aging well. And that primarily includes senior living. So I look forward to hopefully meeting more of you today and answering questions and being of information.
Sue?
Hi, good morning. Thank you, Rick and Christy, for having me here today. I'm with La Costa Glen. My name is Sue Barbado, and I'm a residency counselor. So I'm the person who you would meet with, who gives you a tour and talks to you about our program. We are a continuing care retirement community. You may have heard the term CCRC, and we're type A. There's different types. We are unique in the sense that we are independent living, but we also have 3 levels of care for those that might need it later. We have the assisted living and skilled nursing and memory care. So if your health changes while you're living in independent living, you have full access to Glenbrook, which is adjacent to La Costa Glen. Our financial model actually includes coverage of long-term care as long as you come into the community in good health. So I look forward to hearing your questions and helping you make a decision. It's a big decision. We know that. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sean, and I'll tell you a little bit about me. My very first job ever was as a server in the dining room of a retirement community. And I was hooked. I fell in love with it, and I made a career out of it. So now I work for Westmont Living as a community relations director, and we have 5 communities in San Diego County. And what I can really talk to you guys today about is RCFE communities, which, if we have that slide up, really talks about the full service independent living, the assisted living, and memory care. So I'll be excited to listen to you guys and answer all your questions. Thanks.
I'm Christy Kramer-Levander. I'm a realtor with Compass. I've been a realtor since 1986. And my first senior I worked with was in 1987. And so I know the different 55 plus communities in the North County area that somebody might choose to buy instead of going into a senior living community. So I'll just briefly be telling you about some of those kind of options, and I'll turn it over to Rick.
Okay, the way this is going to run, instead of talking about this from left to right, I'm going to go to the middle and move out this way, because the last discussion will be about what houses cost. So what I'd like my panelists to do is describe the general features and offerings of interdependent living, also known as independent living. So I'm going to start first here with Sean, since you were last, and just give the folks a general idea of what independent living consists of.
Yeah, absolutely. So sometimes there might be a little misconception with 55 plus, maybe maintenance-free apartments versus the full-service independent living. So when you look at the full-service independent living, what the community focus on is lifestyle. So you're going to find an apartment that you're going to have a full kitchen and a washer and dryer, but there's going to be a lot of community amenities that the residents can take advantage of. For example, housekeeping services will be offered, food will be offered, because most places will have a restaurant, as well as lifestyle programs with on-site activities and amenities, whether it's a pool, fitness center, a library, card room. And then also communities will offer transportation services. Maybe someone has stopped driving for whatever reason. A community will have shuttles and vans that can take you to your doctor's appointments, shopping trips, as well as outings in the area as well. So again, the independent living really focuses on the lifestyle, the maintenance-free, no more cooking, and no more cleaning.
Thank you. Sue.
What he said. And yeah, so the way I like to see it is you're going to get rid of all the men in your life. The plumber, right? The maintenance guy, the gardener. So it's really about freedom, believe it or not. A lot of times I'll have people that say, well, I'm not ready to be in a place where it's, things are restrictive. It's not restrictive. It's really more about you enjoying your life. As Sean said, there's activities and a whole lifestyle where you can enjoy yourself and enrich yourself. It's a place where you can feel comfort knowing that your relationships with your children won't change. So there's really a lot to it. But yeah, independent living, for us, that means, beautiful home, a whole package of services and amenities, restaurants to go to, and movie theater, fitness classes, outings. So you'll be going off site on a regular basis. You can enjoy going to Balboa Park for the day and not have to worry about driving or, paying parking fees. Everything's included. So there's really a lot about independent living that really, for CCRC, it spells freedom.
And Jonathan.
Yeah, so what I like to talk about independent living compared to often, not always, but often the other levels of care. Independent living often for an individual is a want. I want to move to independent living for all the reasons that Sean and Sue mentioned. It's interesting, the evolution, though, of independent living over the past just even few years. Who's heard of Uber or Lyft? Who's heard of Instacart or Uber Eats? When I first got into the senior living industry, these technologies did not exist. So for folks who were no longer driving or couldn't pick up something from the local store, they had to move to a retirement community, even though they were still truly independent. The value from a health standpoint that independent living provides, though, is the relationships. I see so often in our community individuals who are completely healthy and independent, yet lonely and isolated. And the independent living option is such a wonderful solution. And it doesn't just help our emotional health when we are not isolated, it's also protective for our physical health.
Great. Yeah, please, Chrissy, go ahead.
So one of the things that independent living means to me and some of the clients that I've been is that the cooking part. Some people don't want to cook at all, and the dining room is wonderful for that. But other people like myself, I would still want to cook, and they have nice kitchens. You can have people over, and so you really do feel more independent.
All right. Next one. Can you give me an example of someone moving from not being, I'm sorry, let me start all over. When people contact you, either for additional consultation or maybe to come to a tour of your facility, what's the reason you hear most that is keeping them from moving to your campus? Sue, you get to go first this time.
Okay, so the 3 words I hear the most: I'm not ready, or I'm not ready yet, 4 words. So it's different to everyone, but what I find is it's usually up here. Sometimes people just can't wrap their head around leaving their home of 30, 40 years to move to a retirement community. It's really hard to wrap your head around. But when it comes down to it, if I dig a little deeper, I find that it's about the memories. It's about your stuff. And stuff can be moved into a new home. And a home is just a place where you keep all your stuff. When you take it out, it's just a house. So I always find that when I dig a little deeper, I think people are just sort of attached to the memories. The other thing I hear is, if you could see my beautiful ocean view, you wouldn't want to leave either. Well, we don't have an ocean view, but we have other things. And that's what you have to kind of imagine. New friendships, all kinds of conveniences, care if you need it, safety, all of those things. Your beautiful ocean view will not take care of you if you need it.
Good point. Good point. Jonathan, please.
Yeah. I mean, I think to Sue's point, I'm not ready is a common theme. I challenge individuals to think about and to actually write out what are their biggest concerns of potentially moving to a community. And I think that's a really healthy exercise. And to acknowledge that moving's really hard, but if you can move in with a spouse or a partner, that is such a gift. In my experience, people wait until, sadly, there's an emergency to start really thinking about and or start looking at the different options. And I challenge everyone, I challenge even my parents, to start looking before they think that they need it. Those are the top things I notice.
Okay, thank you. And my man, John, go ahead.
We're going to have Q&As at the end. Will you write down your question?
Yeah.
So that you don't forget.
Thanks. All right.
Well, these two just took the words out of my mouth. I mean, what you guys said was absolutely perfect. So something maybe that I could add to that, what I hear also is I'm not ready yet. So, if you ever find yourself touring a community like mine or Sue's, or maybe you're out with Jonathan looking at places, try to talk with some of the residents that live there. Enjoy a meal with them. Participate in some of the lifestyle programs that are going on, because I can guarantee that all of those people before they moved in said those same 4 words. And that'll give you a good insight as to how they did it and how they're enjoying their lifestyle now. So that's what I have to add to that.
Thank you. All right, Jonathan, I'm going to start with you, but this one, can you give me an example of someone's moving from not being in the best place, they weren't ready, but they become ready? Now, how did that move impact that person or those people?
That's a good question. Well, I'll just share a quick story. I used to work at a retirement community truly right down the road here. And it is not easy. It is very hard to make a move. This was a Holocaust survivor that moved in. She was 90, 91, 92 years old. And she moved into the community I was working at. And she said, the hardest thing I've ever done in my life was survive Auschwitz, survive the Holocaust, the camp. And the second hardest thing was moving to this community. And that, she wasn't kidding. That really shook me up, and it really reminded me the enormity of the emotions behind this. She lived to be, she was 92 when she moved in. She lived to be 104 years old at this community. And I am certain it was because of the people that were around her. And had she been isolated at home, there's no way she would have made it that long. And so she got to see extra life events, great-great-grandchildren, and so much more. So that's one of the benefits of community.
Okay. Sean, can you give me an example of how to change someone's life?
I can give you an example. I was thinking of one as you asked that question, and I had one that popped into my mind. A few years back, I was working at the community I was working at, doing what I do, talking with people and answering their questions. And I had this gentleman that had reached out to me. And I'll give you his first name as I tell the story. His name's Earl. And I'll never forget him. We're still friends to this day. And Earl had lost his wife of many, many years and was living at home alone for, I think by the time he called me, a few months, maybe a year, and really wasn't doing that well. His social circle had really kind of shrunken on him after his wife passed away, and he struggled with a few things. He struggled with cooking, he struggled with the laundry, and so he found himself ordering out for every meal and dropping off all of his clothes at the dry cleaner, if you can believe that. And the tab kind of added up on him, and he became very lonely, spending thousands of dollars a month on takeout and a few $100s a month on dry cleaning and not interacting with anybody, being lonely in his home. And I had him come over for a tour, and it was such a big decision for him, like it is. And I think it was probably about 3 or 4 months before he finally made a decision. Multiple visits to our community. And so what I did is I invited him to one of our men's groups that we had had. I said, hey, you should come by at this time and you can talk with some of our residents. And so he finally made the decision. He put a lot of trust in me because I told him that this was going to be a good decision for him. So he really trusted me. And this is at least 4 or 5 months of communicating with him. And I got to tell you something. Right after he moved in, I noticed a change in him in the first month, if not sooner. He didn't have to cook anymore. He didn't have to order takeout. He just walked down to our restaurant, and he was able to get something to eat anytime. We had our housekeepers that went in. They cleaned his apartment for him once a week, and they even did his linens and towels for him, something he never had to do ever and really struggled with it. And then on top of that, being able to go to those men's groups that we had hosted and other activities that we had. He's such a cool guy, and I noticed that change in him right away, where those services and the relationships that he was able to make really, really turned his life around, and it really became positive for him. So that's my story.
Fantastic, fantastic. Sue, you got a story for me?
So, excuse me, I've been with La Costa Glen for at least 13 years and like 2 weeks. So there's so many stories, so many.
Just one.
I know. I'm trying to choose. But the thing that I can tell you that I hear often is, I wish I'd done it sooner. And thank God I'm here. The most recent story is a couple living in Carlsbad, great big home. The gentleman was really having some issues with walking and just mobility issues, but cognitively sharp as a tack. His wife did not want to move, and I think he was just sort of going along and happy wife, happy life, right? But eventually the kids were able to convince them that they needed to make a change. We got them a beautiful apartment at La Costa Glen, and as we had sort of predicted, this gentleman did need some more help. He ended up going into skilled nursing for a while after having a medical issue. After rehab, he came back. He's in physical therapy. He's walking. He's doing great. And recently I saw him in the hallway, back in independent living, and he smiled so big and he gave me a great big hug. And he just said, "Thank you." And I hear a lot of thank yous. And it makes my job that much more enriching.
Fantastic. Christy, did you want to add anything?
So we have one client who, about 2 years ago, called us and said, we want to put our house on the market. We're thinking about downsizing. And they both were physically fit. They still could do it, but he said the stairs are getting a little bit harder. And so we talked to them, I started showing them around. The big part, like all of you, so many of us, is what do we do with our stuff? It's like they really thought they wanted to downsize. So I've changed it to right size. They actually bought up in Ocean Hills with a home that's just about as big as they had. But the home they had stairs, that had a yard that was too hard for him to take care of, and there was hillside, and it was just too much. So they moved into Ocean Hills and were enjoying life. This is the gated community up there. And they're getting to know their neighbors and loving life. And he came down with Lou Gehrig's disease. And who would have guessed? Who would have guessed? He ended up where, on a walker and then in a wheelchair. And thank goodness he was in a home that had big, wide hallways, that had doorways that the wheelchair could fit in, that had a large enough shower for him to easily get in on his own. He's no longer with us, sad to say. Excuse me. His wife is still struggling. This was about 3 months ago, I think. Her neighbors rallied around. Luckily, they were there soon enough. They brought food. They helped her out with him. If she had to go to the store shopping, and they ended up with Lou Gehrig's disease. There's an association that helps. So her friends are now getting her to come back to the community pool and helping her get back on her feet. And I just feel so grateful that they made this move while they could.
Right. Jonathan, did you ever do this?
I think I spoke.
Okay, well, it's still early for me. All right, now this is a tough one. I want you to talk about dealing with people show up and say, "We have to move." Are there situations in independent living where you have to turn them away? And I'll start that with Jonathan, if that's okay. Or where you've seen them turn.
I think Sue and Sean would
Okay,
better.
fair enough. Sue?
So at our community, you do need to be qualified to live at La Costa Glen. How do you qualify? 3 things. You got to be 60 years of age. So we have to see your driver's license. Just kidding. And health-wise, you have to be qualified. So you need to be fully ambulatory and no cognitive issues, because we are independent living. And financially, you need to qualify. So sometimes I will have someone who is in front of me, and maybe it's a husband and wife, and maybe one spouse has a medical condition where they would not qualify. In some cases, some medical conditions, it doesn't mean that they can't live in independent living, but we do have an option, a different contract that we can talk about in those cases. So what I'm talking about is degenerative conditions that would affect a contract. Parkinson's, MS, COPD, those are 3 pretty clear ones. Doesn't mean you can't live in independent living, but there is a different contract that we would be able to